What's up, everybody? SC Navi here. New camera today, GoPro Hero 10. So hopefully this does a little bit better. This is a bigger video. I'm gonna have to take in parts, a few clips at a time. But what we're doing today is we're gonna rewire the bike to use LED front and back for the headlight and turn signal. We're going to convert it over to DC power. We're going to do so safely in a way that includes a fuse. I've done the quick and dirty way by rewiring it in the headlight. I didn't think that was the best way about it, so I dug around. Somebody shared a PDF with me on Quasi-Motard's Discord, which actually had almost exactly the same idea I did. So we're going to do that. First part you're going to have to take care of is removing you got to pull the seat, pull the gas cap cover, or the gas cover, what do you want to call it. Two screws on the inside of the door, right at the hinge, 2 screws up front. Lifts right off. With the right side plastic, you're going to have a screw here, screw underneath, 3 screws along this pan. You're going to have to take the, let me do the camera so you can see. So yeah, 3 screws in this pan here, screw up top, screw here, screw in the back. You're going to have to pull the box out from under to get to it. There's also a push pin. And there's a couple of these. There's one up top, one on the bottom. If this freaks you out, don't worry about it. Take a punch. It's going to look like that in the bike. Push that center with a punch. You don't have to push it all the way through, just until you hear feel a little snap. Let's pull right out. All right, 2 screws up front. Just so you can see that. 2 screws up front here. Now, if you don't have a right angle screwdriver, most people don't, you can take a ratchet, a 1/4 inch socket, and you can put 1/4 inch hex bits in that and turn it. That'll basically make you a right angle screwdriver. So once you have the cover off, the right side plastic off, and of course the seat's off, next thing, take the battery box or battery cover off. 1 screw in the middle, you push on the back, lifts right out. Alright, so we're going to disconnect the battery. I've already done so. Disconnect your hot, disconnect your ground. There are nuts under here in the terminals. Make sure you don't lose those. Just get them out of the way. Don't really have to, but it's always best practice. Pull the battery if you're gonna mess with electronics. Next thing, you see here, this little guy right there. I'll zoom in for you if I can. All right, do the old school way. Lean in. So right here, that's your fuse panel. We'll pop the lid off of that, and the fuse we're going to pay attention to today is the 7.5 amp fuse. There's a 10, that's your main. This 10 right here, this recessed, that's just a spare fuse. We want to mess with the 7.5, and I'll show you why when we get later on in the video. But for now we got all that uncovered. Excuse me, I'm going to slide my seat back there. Our next thing we're going to focus on is this. This is a rectifier. Plugged into the rectifier is a connector right here. Going to that connector, it's 2 brown wires. Those brown wires are the wires that supply power to your headlight and your tail light. So the idea, make sure you guys can still see, the idea is that we're going to snip these brown wires. We're going to pull a little bit of the tape and everything back so we can get at the loom. We're going to snip these off. We're going to cap them, heat shrink them, just to make sure they don't contact anything and short out. We're going to take those brown wires, splice them together. That's a piece of 16 gauge wire. We're going to run that piece of 16 gauge wire up through here, and we're going to use one of these guys. This is add a circuit. So it's just a mini fuse add a circuit. So what it allows you to do, let me open it up for you. A couple bigger bikes going by. So what this allows you to do, this will slide in to that fuse location with that 7.5 amp fuse. We'll then take the 7.5 amp fuse, which is for your ignition, put it in the bottom slot. We're going to add a fuse. I think 10 amp will probably be appropriate. We really don't need that. Probably a 5 or 7.5. I'll look. Into the top slot. And we're going to tie our new wire into that. So I'm going to show you step by step as we go. And when we get done with this part of the project, I'm going to show you how to wire up the scooter swap shop turn signals, or just any LED turn signals. Show you where to place the resistors, how to do it, and get that done. We'll have everything on the bike LEDs without anything totally crazy. I know this seems like it might be a lot of work, but honestly, just pulling some plastics off, snipping one wire and rerouting a wire, couldn't be simpler. All right, I'm gonna pause and I'll be right back. All right, got the camera readjusted. So I didn't think you guys wanted to watch me peel a mile of badly applied electrical tape back. So like I said, pull this connector off right here off the rectifier. It's gonna have a bunch of electrical tape on it. Just peel all that back. Don't do the razor blade thing, just take your time. If you got a pair of round nose snips, you can snip it back some. And at this point you have two options. You take these two brown wires coming off of here. You can either clip them off in the connector, put a wire nut on them, heat shrink that wire nut, or wrap it up with electrical tape. Heat shrinks better. Or you can just pull the connector out. They can be a bear to get out. If it doesn't come out just by pushing it through, you're supposed to push up and in. If it doesn't come out that way, you can pull the wires out of it. You're going to have to brute strength it. Then you can take a screwdriver and kind of pry it out. Just be careful not to mangle up this Molex connection. So take your 16 gauge wire, cut you off a length of it that's going to run. What we're going to do is loop it around and follow this loom up to the fuse panel and come down here with it. Cut you off a little bit extra just in case. So first step, snip a clean end on these two wires, just like so. Take your wire strippers and you're going to strip back roughly ½ inch or so. And this is I believe a 22 gauge wire. So just, if you haven't used wire strippers before, just line it up with the tooth that it matches with, slide right off. Alright. May actually be a little bit bigger than that. Try 18. So I did pull a little bit of copper with that. Not enough for concern though. There's like 1 or 2 little threads in there. Alright, we're going to do the same to this yellow wire. Remember, this was 16 gauge. Same thing. Strip it back. Go ahead and strip this in while you're at it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and twist all these up. I always cut it a little bit long because I can snip the end off if I need to. And we're not wire nutting this, so it doesn't really matter which way you braid it. Somebody in the comments will say, well, it always matters. No, it really don't. Alright, so same here. But we're actually going to twist these two together in a pair. Let me make sure that's in frame. Alright, we're going to twist these together in a pair. Make an X with them. Loop them over each other. Just like that. Get a good, clean twist. And twist it up tight. Now, if you have trouble twisting, you can take this end jaw section of your wire strippers, crimp on it a little bit, and twist it with those if you need to. Alright. So, excuse me. We're going to slide some heat shrink over the end of the yellow wire. That's for later. Alright. We're going to use this is a 1614 butt connector. Alright. They make them in different styles. These you can shrink the ends with a heat gun. That's what I want to do. So, sorry, I keep trying to make sure you guys can see all this. Sorry, I'm sitting on my 5-gallon multi-tool, otherwise it's known as a bucket. I'll slide you in a little bit closer. Alright. So, there's our pair. There's our yellow wire that we slipped heat shrink over. Alright. We're going to slide. Make sure you don't have any stray little wires. Slide the butt connector over it. Like so. Push it in there a little bit. Now, some wire strippers have crimpers on them. Some don't. I still prefer to use my old Klein Journeyman wire crimpers. They actually got a little bit of rust on them. Need to clean that up. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a chest cold today. So you just come in here, put your crimper on it. Don't stick it in the middle, stick it right on the end that you're working on, and squeeze it down. That's it. That's crimped. That ain't going nowhere. Alright, so we're going to do the same with the yellow side. Stick it on the other end. I cut that one a little long, so I'll snip it off a little bit. And that's okay to do. Doesn't hurt anything. I always like to give myself a little extra to work with. This is better to have it a little too long than come up too short. That's what she said. Get that where it's not in my way. Same thing, just get it in the crimper, give it a little squeeze, and that's it. Tug on it a little bit, make sure it ain't going nowhere. Alright, so this is probably going to be loud on the microphone, but next step, if you choose to, which you don't really have to, if you have ones with shrink ends, go ahead and shrink that up now. And if you don't have a heat gun, this Warrior brand one's from Harbor Freight. I just picked this one up a couple weeks ago because my old one went out on me. It was the same one that I had for a couple years. These are 12, 15 bucks. Go grab you one. It's a handy tool. It's better than using a blow dryer for this kind of stuff. Now these take a second. Try not to get it over the middle. Just try to work the ends. Wave it over, give it a little bit even heat. We're not totally worried if this shrinks all the way down. We just want to shrink up enough to actually put our heat shrink over the top. I mean, this technically is heat shrink, but I like it to look a little nicer than just having a butt splice hanging out there. Plus it makes the next guy that work on it wonder what you did. Then he digs into it and realizes he's got to cut wires back, and you get to have a little laugh to yourself knowing that he's dealing with it. I always do things for the next guy that's got to work on it, because normally it's you. Alright, so we're going to let that cool down for a second. We want it cool to the touch before we slide the red heat shrink over, or it's just going to stick sliding over it. Alright, I'll hold that up so you guys can see. Just a nice clean connection. We pulled it directly out of this, so we don't have to worry about capping it if we pull the spade connector out of here. Alright, if you leave it in there, like I said, just trim these wires back enough that you got a little bit of work with, put a wire nut on it, heat shrink it, you're good to go. I prefer doing this because I don't like having stray hots hanging around, especially when it's AC. Alright, and that should be cool enough to slide this over. Slide this red heat shrink over the top and shrink that up. Same thing, just kind of pass it along. Don't work one side too much. That's gonna make it look extra professional. This is gonna be an extra pain in the butt when you gotta take it apart, but should never have to take this apart. Shouldn't. Alright, don't heat it too much or you just make it melt. Alright, so while that's cooking, let me pause real quick. Alright, battery is almost dead, so I'm going to try to wrap this up as quick as I can. So we're going to take our fuse connector right here, and we're going to loom this wire through as cleanly as we can. Let me show you what I'm doing here. There's a boot right here I'm going to push through. Alright. And I'm probably going to go back and wrap this over with some electrical tape later. I just want to make sure this doesn't make contact with anything. It doesn't need to. Sew it on through. And I kind of want to hide it a little bit, you know, since it's not in the loom. Now I'm going to make a bend, so what I'm going to do to make sure it doesn't touch this rectifier is take a zip tie. Make sure you guys can see this. Take a zip tie after I pass it through this boot here. Take a zip tie, tie it up. Don't go crazy with it. Just get it kind of snugged up so it's not dropping down in anything or inadvertently touching the rectifier, which I don't think would be a problem, but hey, don't look for problems when you don't have to. Alright, now I'm going to try to be fancy and pass it under all these wires. And I'm probably going to struggle to do that, or I can do it the easy way and just, yeah. There we go. Push it down through there. Alright. So I'm going to find what I need. And we're going to repeat the same kind of process. I'm going to measure off what I'm going to need there. So it's going to be right about where this battery post is. Same deal as before. Give it a fresh end. Strip it back. And twist it up. Alright. This thankfully came with a butt connector already attached. We're not going to worry about heat shrinking this. It's going to be up top. And let's slide that in there. Yeah. A little tight. Twist this up a little tighter. Go in there. You know you wanna. Alright. That should be good. Then we're just gonna do the same thing we've been doing. Crimp this guy down. Just like so. Give it a tug. Make sure it's connected good. Feels good. And like I said, we're going to pull this 7.5, put it in the bottom. It'll go. There it goes. Just like that. Then we're going to take a fuse. And mine came with a fuse. We're going to try. Why not? We'll just make it another 7.5. Now this one is a very small mini fuse. We could replace this one, but it should be in there just fine. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and replace this with this mini fuse. It should work just fine. We can get pulled out. And I do have some other mini fuses I can put in here, but you guys get the point. We're going to put the fuses in, plug this into the fuse block, hook everything back up, and we'll be done. So the keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed a couple aberrations in the video here. One, we're now filming on a cell phone because I didn't charge the GoPro enough. I guess it's playing around with it, and wife was playing with it, and didn't realize how short the battery life was. But either way, two, yeah, you might have noticed my mistake there. Well, simple mistake to make, easy to make, and I'd rather you guys see my mistakes than you make them yourselves. So this is a low profile mini fuse. She ain't gonna work. So I ran down the road. I really actually hoped I had one in my toolbox, but fortunately I did not. Find a good place to set you guys. Right on the battery, I suppose. It's probably a safe place to put cell phone. Anyway, I had to run down the road because I grabbed the wrong one. So don't grab, you do need a mini fuse at a circuit, but you need a mini, not a low profile mini. So yeah, grab one. So I'm going to clip this guy out, put the right one in, plug it in and I'll be right back. And sorry for the pause. We're back, guys. So went ahead and reconnected the battery. Went down here. Just taped all this back up. Cleaned it up a little bit. I actually cut this boot down. I slid it up a little higher. Cut it down so it fit tighter up against the rectifier. I didn't like the way it was done originally. If you follow, so we cut the brown wires, pulled them out of this connector, spliced them together. You can still see the heat shrink there, to a 16 gauge wire. We just use yellow. You can use whatever color you like. Red works. Red probably would have been better, but I had yellow on hand. We slid that up through this boot. A little zip tie action. I'll tuck that back so it doesn't turn into a, there we go, a hazard for fingers later down the road. Followed this behind this loom with yellow wire. That's it. Came in through here, but spliced it to the mini fuse add a circuit. I went and wrapped that up with a little electrical tape. I don't like electrical tape, but sometimes you got to use it. It's better than nothing. We plug that into these fuse socket that had these 7.5 amp fuse. Remember, the 10's your main. You don't want to tie this into a main. So whatever fuse you use on top, you have to use the original fuse on the bottom on these. I just went with the 7.5. That should be fine for a headlight and a tail light. We could probably go lower, but it works just fine. So one issue with this cap here, what are you going to do with that? Well, it's a plastic hinge. Just push it down there. It'll weaken the hinge a little bit, but if you ever want to go back to factory, you don't want to cut that off. By the time we put the battery box on it, you'll never know. And we're not worried about any kind of water ingress into the fuses. I rubbed a little bit of dielectric grease around them, the outside perimeter of them, just in case. So bolt your battery back up, and if everything went right, your headlight and tail light will now be running off of DC power. So we're going to give it a little test. Flip the key on. Light came on with the switch, or with the key. See there? That's solid. Come to the back. Yeah, no more flicker. Now I still got the original bulb in the tail light, but see, no flickering. Let's fire it up. Well, we'll check this first. Squeeze the brake lever. Gets brighter. No problem so far. We'll fire it up. Look at there. No flicker on the tail light. And there's slight flicker on the headlight because it's an LED. But you put LED in with a proper decoder. Now the DZG bulb, some information said it had a decoder built in under that mini fan up front. I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, when you rev the throttle, not dimming out. So that's working. We're not getting a hyper flicker. We're not dimming out. Nothing crazy's happening. Rev it on the back. Nothing happening. Test the brakes again. So as you can see, it's as simple as that, guys. Brief recap. Pull the brown wires, splice them together, run them into one wire, loop them through here, get yourself a mini fuse, add a circuit, tie it right in there. Now your headlight and tail lights are running on DC. So I'm going to show off the scooter swap shop turn signals while I'm here. There we go. I got those installed last night. Now they were a little bit rough because they are 3D printed. I'm going to hit it with some more sandpaper action and probably prime them and paint them. But honestly, they look pretty good as is. Plenty bright. So we check the high beam. High beam's working. No problem there. We'll rev it. No problem. So they're plenty bright. They look nice. Really easy to wire in. I might do a little quick instructional video. I mean, it's already done, but I'll show you kind of the ins and outs of how you do that. So, two schools of thought with the fronts. Either use a single resistor on, I believe it's the left-hand side of the bike is ties directly into the relay. I didn't get it to work that way. I had to wire a resistor in line to both turn signals and then come to the back and move this battery box here. Come to the back and run a resistor in. There it is. Run a resistor in, and it just takes one in the rear. One handles both sides of the turn signals in the rear. So no matter what, you're going to have to do one in the rear, and you're going to have to do resistors in the front. Otherwise, you're going to hyper flash. But you can see, working just fine. So just keep that in mind. This resistor, I got it on Amazon. If you type it in inline resistor or turn LED resistor, turn signal resistor, by any of those phrases, one of the first ones that's going to pop up is this. It looks like a black box with a red and black wire loop coming off of it. The ones in the front are the ones directly from Scooter Swap Shop. They work just fine. They were 16 gauge wire, like pretty much all of them are, and they had the they had connectors on them that weren't quite going to work with the turn signals because they were 22 gauge wire. So what I did was actually strip it back and solder it directly into the wire for the resistors, and it worked just fine. So anyway, guys, a lot of guys have been toying around with this. So I think between everybody playing with it, we got it figured out. I will try to find the guy that originated that PDF, because I pretty much followed exactly what he did 90% of the way there anyway. Instead of just, I think the only difference between mine and his instructions were he cut the wires off and capped them. I prefer to pull them out. That way you don't have to worry about them ever. Make sure nothing gets hot. Alright, nothing is. So I'll try to find out who wrote that original PDF, give him some credit in the description. Yeah, so keep this video a little bit shorter. I hope you liked it, guys. Hope it helps. Like I said, it's pretty easy. Don't fear electrical stuff. Nothing to it. Whole project cost me probably about $6. So, alright, so if you like the video, before I ramble too far, check out the giveaway. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video. Check out the merch store, help support the channel. And as always, like and subscribe, and have a great day.